Good afternoon, dear guests and our speakers, dear guests in Press Center and those who watch us online. Ukraine Crisis Media Center continues its working day, and we start the next event, the presentation of the book Life Imprisonment, European Standards and Ukrainian Practice. And I provide the floor to our speakers. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We start our presentation that is dedicated to different aspects of the problem of life imprisonment in Ukraine. And today we're going to present our research that were carried out during recent years in different conditions, in different aspects of this problem of life imprisonment. This is including the conditions and the lack of legal capacities to review judgments, even if there are grounded doubts. And in this book that we present today, we bring such examples. Also, replacement of the life imprisonment with imprisonment that has definite terms, and what legal capacities we may have in Ukraine, and how all this is corresponded with international standards concerning life imprisonment. So this is the complex of the issues, and also the issue of spiritual nature connected with the capital punishment in Ukraine. And we have this life imprisonment in Ukraine, and before we had this capital punishment until 1999. Now we have life imprisonment. So all these questions we'd like to communicate to you during our brief press conference through this book. We provided a press release, and there is a link to the publication of this book on the internet. The book I show now to you. And lastly, we'd like to say that our activists carried out a survey, more than 1/3 of convicted for life, and today we present the results of this research. Briefly about the results. They are also presented in our press release. So I provide a short introduction to the topic, and now I would like to pass to brief characteristic of the situation that we have in the legal area. After the decision of the European Court on Human Rights in case of Petkov against Ukraine #2, and Petkov is the person who convicted for life, and he won the case in the European Court twice. First, this was about his case, and second, it was about impossibility to replace life imprisonment with the milder type of punishment. And the European Court comprehensively considered this case and provided a decision that the situation in Ukraine violates Article 3 of European Convention that defends people from torture and other violations of such type. So there are no possibility to replace this life sentence for milder punishment. And this is a serious decision. After this, a lot of people who sentenced for life, they provided applications to the European Court, and they provide decision quickly about these cases. And I would like to say that last year, we provided 3 applications like this in February, and the court quickly considered those cases and provided the positive decisions in October. So the European Court recognized that there is such a problem and it should be resolved at the national level. The same is about big chamber of the High Court. Why the High Chamber considered this case? Because according to the criminal and procedural law, the application to reconsider the cases in case of decisions in European Court, the highest chamber of court should provide the decision. And Petokhov case was considered to cancel the main decision about life imprisonment in this case, and they rejected him because they said that this should be provided not by the court, but by the legal body, legislative body. And the parliament should reconsider the court, the articles 21, 22 of the criminal code, and to consider this replacement of life punishment with milder punishment. The same is about several attempts of rejection. They considered this case in another high instance. Constitutional Court of Ukraine also considered this case the same. They recognized and they wrote this decision down that the parliament should change the articles of 28 and 22 of the criminal code. So this is the matter of parliament to consider this case first. So this is the main result in the context we are interested in. We should say that the Ministry of Justice is trying to implement the decision of the European Court considered Petokhov against Ukraine #2. They prepared draft law 4049, and it was approved in the first reading, and it was prepared for the second reading. But this draft law suffers because it has a lot of drawbacks. And lawyers and imprisoned persons and human rights defenders, they also identified flaws in this draft law. This draft law does not differentiate life imprisoned persons who got punishment now and they should serve it, and those who served more than 20 years. And when they calculate those years to have this end term of punishment, they are in the similar position, in the same circumstances. And it happens so that those who serve 20 years, they may be released in 70 years, for example. So this is like a capital punishment with some delay. And this draft law was seriously criticized in this sense. It should be changed. Nevertheless, it was ready for the second reading. And then these decisions of the High Chamber of High Court and the Constitutional Court came, and everything stopped. And the Parliament should return this draft law for the second reading and to reconsider it for the second reading, taking into account all recommendations that were provided by the Constitutional Court, by the High Court and the European Court decisions in Petokhov #2 against Ukraine case, and other recommendations of the European Committee for preventing torture and life imprisonment, and nothing was done in this case. We cannot observe this, and and this is really bad because years pass and people lose hope that they someday will be released. There is one more important aspect of this problem. This is imprisonment of those who were not guilty. Many people who serve life sentences didn't recognize their guilt, and they believe that they are innocent. And in some cases, we believe that this is the case. And these people, they have no opportunity to have their cases reconsidered, and they serve sentences for the crimes they didn't commit. And this is absolutely unacceptable. This is really terrible. And the state that allows the things like these, that people are sentenced for life without any guilt, the state does not have the right to be in this case, I believe. So this is a comprehensive overview of this problem, and I would like to give the floor to Father Kostiantyn Panteley. He is the head of Pastoral Care Department at the Penitentiary System of Ukraine, and I would like to say that this event is held together with Kharkiv Human Rights Defenders Group and the Ukrainian Union of Churches. Thank you. At the Ministry of Justice, from this adoption of this law concerning pastoral care, so this is number 419, and we have the Pastoral Care Council, and I am the deputy head of this council at the Ministry of Justice. And this Pastoral Care Council is the advisory body, and we provide advice to state bodies, and we are focused on penitentiary system and on pastoral care. And also we deal with issues of freedom of faith, and we provide help to those who are in the court system in different court proceedings. And all chaplains, they visit prisons. Unfortunately, in pandemic, we have this quarantine, and a lot of corrective actions were made because of this, and we continue our service in inter-church format, and we do everything possible in this pandemic situation. In penitentiary system, even before military actions started, we know that there are a lot of people who sentenced for life, and our situation with the number of those who are imprisoned for life, it improved statistically only because 500 persons who served their sentences were in the occupied territories. And these convictions, they really increase. And those who got these convictions, the first, these were people about whom it was said, and they provide evidence that the main source of indictment was their evidence, and they provided fake information about themselves, and despite the fact that these people, they are convicted for those crimes that cannot be redeemed somehow. So people were killed, families lost their relatives, and we understand that people serve their sentences, and they should have the right for hope. And the aim is to correct the criminal. And we see that during their years in prison, these people sometimes go along the way of so these people, they become religious, they become they come to faith, and in June last year we took decision to support the initiative of the Kharkiv Human Rights Defenders Group that wants to provide alternatives to these people and to provide parole to these people after some term, and also to reconsider those criminal cases that raise some suspicions concerning the circumstances when these actions were carried out, and the sentences that can be reconsidered because they were not legal. And justice and fairness are impossible without mercy. No matter how grave are the consequences of criminal crimes, we know that there are numerous situations when people, they avoid any punishment for their crimes. But there are some people who are in the penitentiary system who are prisoners. They need help because they need to have access not only to human rights defenders, but also to pastors and people of civil society, because conditions in prison, when people serve life sentences, and we understand that these people cannot be in society, but society should have proper access to these people, to communicate, to work with those people, because their humanity cannot be rejected in any case, no matter what crime they did. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Yuriy Kulakevych, pastor, director of Department of Foreign Relations of Ukrainian Church of Evangelical Faith. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank the authors and to congratulate them with this book. That will be one more brick in the construction of the better Ukraine. For Ukrainian Union of Churches and religious organizations as the biggest institution of civil society, care for justice, as we call it, is not only a good slogan that may be used before elections or in other good circumstances, but this is one of the basis for our daily work that motivates us, because we understand that justice always is the basis for civil cohesion and understanding among people, and it helps us to build trust, and we may build our better coexistence in our Ukrainian land. And from the Soviet times, there were some reforms, but those pastors who were young at the time and they were in prisons and they served sentences in 1980s, now they go back to those prisons to help others. And there are people who do not have hope that they would be able to leave those terrible conditions. And this service, this situation when many Ukrainian churches, they guide people in prisons, and pastors, they go to prisons, they remember the words of Jesus Christ that I was in prison and you came to me. And for me, and for us, we see that human rights defenders, they discuss these issues now, and this is the matter that is really disturbing. This is about human rights protection in prison and the right for fair trial. And we understand that this is lacking in Ukrainian criminal justice. And as it was noted by my colleague, by the priest, on behalf of Ukrainian Union of Churches and Religious Organizations, we stand by and we help those who were convicted during Soviet times. And, for example, people starting 1961, they serve sentences. And when we go into the details of their cases, we see that there are grounds and doubts about these cases, especially in cases that were brought by and there is no proper legal basis for these convictions. And people, they are in prison. And when you speak with pastors, they ask for help. And as you say, I ask for help, but there is no justice. We, as priests, we believe that victims of such Soviet so-called justice, they continue to suffer because there is no mechanism of reconsidering of their cases. They consider to suffer from injustice, and at the same time, they really need, they have the need for mercy, and we all want justice, especially in those moments when we understand that this is complete injustice. And the Ukrainian Union of Churches, together with Ukrainian human rights defenders, we work on the next steps, and in the nearest future, you will be able to listen about other important initiatives, including media initiatives, social initiatives, in order that this topic be promoted. Together, we should work in order that everyone be sure that in our Ukraine, we are guided by the rule and we are guided by justice. Even if there is a trial, it should be fair in accordance with the best legal and court practices. I would like to remind you that the Ukrainian Union of Churches also outlined the problem in the judicial system of Ukraine. We also have meetings with different international partners. We study experience of other countries, how pastors in other countries are dealing with these processes, and we also meet with the European high officials, and we are working with ambassadors, for example, in the format of G7. And this is a matter of restoration of justice in Ukraine. This is the highest priority for us, in order that in Ukraine each person would be able to know that I can get proper legal help, and I may have this proper legal help and proper fair court decision. And I would like to thank the authors of this book, of this research. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to say that this book is supported by the Embassy of Norway in Ukraine, and we are really grateful to our donors that provided this opportunity to hold these surveys and to sum up them in this way, in the form of the book. I would like to give the floor to Andriy Didenko, coordinator of the program at Kharkiv Human Rights Defenders Group. Thank you very much. I would like to say that our organization, Kharkiv Human Rights Defenders Group, during the last 11 years, at all platforms, in all media resources, we are trying to bring attention of society, to bring attention of officials who take decisions starting from president and parliamentarians. But the problem that exists in Ukraine started in 2010 when High Court lost its right to reconsider the cases and special proceedings. So this procedure was not really efficient. I wouldn't say that this was really that could correct all court's errors, but legally there was such a procedure that if we today would bring these stories in the media, the stories that we have on our side, considering this case of life imprisonment, and we would be able to cancel these grave judgments that were not fair, and this could be done through the practice of the High Court concerning this reconsidering of cases. During these years, we have changes, presidents change, parliament change, and all officials speak about fair court, about restoration of justice and building trust to the justice system. But unfortunately, we see that reverse things are going on. And Kharkiv Human Rights Defenders Group, we lobby a number of draft laws that would be able to change the situation. And we need to have these first steps to change the situation. Draft law 2033A that was approved by the previous convocation in the first reading, but it unfortunately didn't become a law. Also, draft law 2107 that would provide responsibility to the ombudsman at the Supreme Council, like this is done in Poland, to apply for reconsideration of the case to the High Court, and this project remains the project, the draft. And now there is a draft law in the Parliament, 5747, and it may make a first step in this case. This is about those who were sentenced for life in accordance with the Soviet criminal law. But this draft law was supported by 12 authors, but it is still a draft, and the parliament is delaying in its adaptation. So this is a big problem. And if even one person is serving a life sentence, and this person is not guilty, and we all speak about it on the platforms, and we bring examples, and Nina Karpachova, ombudsman, speaks about it in the parliament, and the Helsinki group also focuses on examples of Vladimir Palnasenko, Yaroslav Mysyakak, Miraba Suslav, Igor Vovkodav, Igor Zinchenko, Rashidbek Isakov, Edibek Zaripov, and many other people who were convicted for life without any chance for reconsidering of their cases, without any prospects of release from this punishment. We carried out a small survey, and we visited 6 colonies where these persons who were convicted for life are serving the sentence. Berdichevsky, 70 colony, also colony number 1. There are more than 300 people, Rovninsky colony 56. Yana Baranova, we thank you for helping us. Vladizhinska colony 39, Zamkovo colony 58, and Zhytomyrska colony number 8. We surveyed those who were sentenced for life. This was an anonymous survey, and each person could provide this information anonymously. In this survey, 599 people participated. This is more than 1/3 of all convicted for life. For the 1st January 2022, in accordance with the statistics, we have 1,544 people who are serving life sentence. 371 persons, they provided their names, so they provided trust to our research, and the youngest respondent was 22 and the oldest 69. 7 years was the smallest term and 28 was the longest. Part of these people, they were sentenced to capital punishment, but then their sentence was changed for life imprisonment. And 297 people said that they are guilty, and 271 said that they are not guilty. So we cannot verify this information. We are not investigators. We are not court, but we are speaking about the data. And 378 said that this punishment is too heavy. 30 said that this punishment is adequate. 130 respondents said that they didn't commit this crime, and 367 said that this qualification was not correct. 74 respondents said that qualification of this crime was correct. 439 said that during investigation they were tortured, and only 134 said that they were not tortured. 108 respondents said that in the course of the investigation they didn't have a lawyer, and only 32 trusted to their defenders. So about conclusion of this survey, these people, and we are speaking about 491 persons, if we extrapolate this research for all those who are convicted for life, we may say it for sure that half of the majority of those people, they are convicted in accordance with old Soviet criminal procedural court of 1961. So these people were discriminated. They are discriminated in accordance with 2 criteria. Because they were convicted in accordance with the procedural law of Soviet Union, and they were tortured, and they provided evidence under torture, and the courts brought decisions based on these evidence that were provided by these people who were tortured. And second is that they were convicted by the oblast courts, and their right for fair trial was violated. And others, they're convicted by Ryan courts, and they had the right for appeal in the Court of Appeal, and they had the right to provide an application to Cassation Court of Ukraine. And in my speech, I would like to address to the top officials. They should pay attention to their citizens. They should remind themselves about the promises that they made before elections. So they should provide justice for those people who were convicted in accordance with the old Soviet criminal code. Thank you, Andriy. So these are the bright results of our research. I would like to add several words. Last year, our organization opened a separate site. This is called Fight for Life, stories.org, and this is the second domain to our portal connected with human rights, and this is about stories of people who are imprisoned for life. And we have grounded evidence that some of them didn't commit those crimes. And we have the stories of people, of 13 people on the site, and we will add new stories to the site. We will collect this information because this is absolutely necessary to bring this information to the public, to bring the situation, to speak about what is going on with these people who were sentenced for life, how they serve the sentence, for what, and that we should reconsider these sentences about which we have doubts. This is all from me. If you have questions, please ask. Good afternoon, everyone. Last news. There were requests, deputy requests for the legal committee and the Human Rights Committee about the text of draft 4049 that was brought for voting, but there is no proper formulation. Last week, I visited Minister Maluska, and he said that he would try to somehow to make the situation more clear. And we are ready for active actions in the Verkhovna Rada. That's why we should do this. We should resolve this problem. And did you have answers to these requests? No, we only made these requests recently, so we didn't have answers at the moment. Do you have other questions? No. Maybe our online audience have some questions. No further questions, so please sum up. I believe we've said a lot about these suspicious convictions. Maybe we should speak about some story publicly. I would ask Andriy or other colleagues to speak about Yaroslav Musak, a pastor who was convicted for the crime of his relatives, but I'm completely sure that he is innocent. Thank you, Yevgeny Yuhimovich. This story is really terrible. I have been dealing with this problem for a long time, and when I've heard the story, I came to Uzhgorod. I studied the materials of the case. I met with Yaroslav Musak, the pastor, and I was really surprised that these violations of human rights are really brutal. Maybe you do not know the story. You may find a film, 11-minute film, Dokudes UA. This is the festival of documentaries, and also this is Terror Without End. This is on YouTube. This is a story of a 23-year-old young man who was the assistant of the bishop in Zakarpattia Oblast, and he worked with young people, and he was convicted of killing his three relatives. His grandparents and uncle died because of tragic events, and I spoke with the lawyers and I studied the examination, and it was evident that he could not, one person could not commit this crime. There were several people, a group of people, and the wounds show this, and the lawyers, they now reconsider those examinations, and also the expertise shows that this knife does not belong to the case, and also the character of bodily harm shows that these bodily harms were done by a person who has experience, special skills to provide bodily harm. And the evidence was that he provided evidence against himself, and there was no proper protocol. So there were grave violations of procedural form of collection of evidence. In 3 days, Yaroslav Mysyak, in the premise of a prosecutor in Uzhgorod, in presence of lawyers, he completely rejects this self-evidence he provided, and he provides arguments why he provided evidence against himself. International organization Amnesty International, in its report for 1999, if you remember, in this report they provided information to cancel capital punishment, and now he serves life sentence for nothing. And Amnesty International spoke about torture against Yaroslav. There was torture. He was electrocuted to provide evidence against himself, and his father, his late father, he provided video footage to Amnesty International, and there was a report about it. And nevertheless, Yaroslav Mysyak continues to serve life sentence. For the 7th year, in Mukachevsky regional inter-regional court, they reconsider criminal case due to newly found evidence, and the composition of court changes. Territorially also this is all changed. First it was in the Uzhgorod court, then all the courts were replaced due to legal procedures, and the Mukachevsky court also delays this hearing for 24th of February. I do not know about further actions, but I believe that justice will be in this case, because this is not normal when in the country that calls itself civilized, and that we have such a situation. So Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations, I would like to thank this organization that really helps us in the struggle, and they provided public request to the president to pardon Yaroslav Mysyak. International organization from Switzerland addressed the president to pardon Yaroslav Mysyak, but unfortunately in our country pardon does not work properly, and we believe this is a topic for a separate press conference. Thank you. Thank you, Andriy. I would like to add only one thing that is really important, I believe. Yaroslav, during his years in prison, he didn't lose hope. He didn't denigrate. He started to spread evangelical word with his colleagues who served life sentence. He started to bring the Bible. He reads for them. He explained to them things, and he inspired others for life despite their specific status. During these years in prison, tens of people shifted from the dark side to the bright side due to his friendship, due to his pastoral care. They started to read the Bible and started to speak with God, and they started to pray, and due to his word, they found the sense of their life. We free people, we cannot understand what is the sense of life in prison, but these people, due to his attitude, due to his pastoral care, they found hope. And lastly, we should say the words from the script, and they are really important here, that you will be able to understand them due to the fruit they bring. So we, as all Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations, we will continue at different levels. We will continue to speak about moral justice as one of the top obligations of our Ukrainian power. And we will voice this, because this should be above all intentions and hopes. And those people in power, they should understand that this is top priority, that this is the biggest importance, to have justice, to have proper justice in courts. And this should be provided in accordance with the best world practices. Thank you very much to all of you to this important event, and we really thank you for this participation, that you promote these matters in our country. If you do not have further questions, we end our press conference. Thank you very much for your participation. And I would like to say that today in this hall we will have one more press conference that will be dedicated to reform of penitentiary medicine in Ukraine. This is one more important and serious topic. If you have opportunity, please, at 3 p.m. we will